Welcome back to Library Choices 2 channel. Today we'll be learning how to make this beautiful illusion neckline blouse. It can also be adapted to a dress and it's very simple to make. If this is what you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned till the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so it's very simple to make and I already have my patterns here so that I will not waste too much time. If you do not know how to draft a princess dart bustier pattern like this, I already have a tutorial on this. You may want to check it out before you continue with this video. Okay, so if you can do this, let's just continue. So now there are several styles of illusion blouse that you can do. There are some that come like an off shoulder. Okay, there are some that comes like in form of an halter neck. Different styles that you can do, but for this tutorial I'll be doing the one that will look like a yoke. So it's just going to be coming from around the armhole like this, and then it's going to taper downwards like that, and it's going to be centralized, which means that what I have on this side is what I'm going to have on the other side. There are some that are tilted to one side that will just come and curve like that. So whichever one you want to do is okay. So for this tutorial, like I said, we'll be doing the one that will be coming from our armhole, and then it will just go downwards like that. So let's just get right into our tutorial. So for this kind of tutorial, I'll advise, if you're working with the one that will just come from your upper part like this, that you work with this type of dart, because an armhole princess dart will give you opportunity to play around with this area. Let's say we are working with a straight dart, maybe a shoulder dart that will come from here. It will require that you start joining your yoke together or something, which is usually a mesh, which is a net that is very soft, and that can be giving you issues. So it is better that you just work with your princess dart that doesn't really have any seam line around this area, so it will give you opportunity to do any style that you want to do. So assuming you're doing maybe an off shoulder, now you know off shoulder just stops around here, you can do a straight dart and still get away with it. But for this type of style, it's better you just work with your princess dart style line. So the first thing you need to note is how open you or your client wants your, remember it's usually a net that is here and is in the middle of the breast, which means the breast might be showing. So you need to determine how open you want this net to show. Okay, how much of your cleavage you are willing to show. So after you have determined that, now let's say I'm working with 2 inches. Okay, I want the opening on the bust point. That's why this is my bust point line. Remember, this is the bust point, this is the chest line, also the armhole line, this is the under bust, and this is the waist. So on my bust point line now, that's the nipple point. Let's say I'm willing to open it by 2 inches. Okay, so this is on fold. Now I'm just going to take my tape measure and measure 1 inch, and then I'm going to dot it here. And remember I said it's going to taper downwards like this. So we'll go over to our waistline. Whatever you want to use there also you can use, but it should not be more than what you have here. So you can use like 1/2 inch or 1/4 of an inch. Let's say I'm using 1/2 inch, I'll have my 1/2 inch here. So I'm going to be connecting this to this, and like I said, I want it just to go towards my armhole because I want the illusion to also involve the upper part of the blouse. So now remember, this is a princess dart seam line, which means I'm going to be cutting this off and I'll still be joining it together. So whatever it is that you want to take, you have to take into consideration of that allowance that you're going to use to join it, so that it will not be looking awkward. So whatever I want to do now, I'll make sure that from this my princess dart seam line, I'm going to go up by at least 1 inch. Okay, so that it will give me enough room to join my side front to my center front later when I'm done. And once I have these important marks, now using my curved ruler, I'm going to connect all of them together. So now I'm going to take my ruler, and then I'll take the curved part like this and then connect this to my armhole. And then after connecting it to my armhole, here I'm going to connect from my bust point to my waistline also, making sure that I don't have any sharp edge. If you have any sharp edge, you need to true it at the end. Okay, and my ruler cannot take everything all at once. I hope you can see this. The marker is fading. So here I'm just going to try to blend it in a bit so that I can have something well rounded. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm through with my pattern. So all this design that I've just drawn now, I'm going to be cutting it on my mesh, and that becomes my illusion. And then I'm going to cut out my side front now so that I can close my dart, so that I can open this dart. Then I'm going to close my bust dart so that I can transfer it to my armhole dart. And then we can cut this. So this center front, the remaining part of the center front and the side front is going to be cut on my main fabric, and then all this side, that is the illusion, is going to be cut on my mesh. So let's do that now. So I've cut out my center front like this, and then I can remove my waist dart. So I already have a tutorial on how you can draft this exact princess dart bustier pattern, so you may want to check that out. Then I'm going to open my bust dart, and then I'll close it using a masking tape. Okay, so once I cut this open now, I'm going to close it like this, and then hold it with a tape. So what I'm doing now is transferring my bust dart to my armhole area, and this is what we have. So you can see that the dart has been transferred here, and then the shortage that I have here, I'm just going to close it up by cutting another pattern, and then I'll place it under here now, and then I'll blend it in. Okay, so basically that is the pattern that we're working with. And like I said, we have several types of patterns. If you want me to do maybe another type of illusion neckline, maybe off shoulder, or the one that just that tilts to one side of the waist, or the one that looks like an halter neck, let me know in the comment section and we'll try to work on it. Okay, but for this tutorial we'll be doing this centralized one. So now to cut my illusion now from my waist, I'm just going to follow the line that I have like this, and then I'm going to cut out my neckline. So if you are okay with this basic neckline, you can make do with it. If you are not okay with it, you can cut another style of neck. Okay, so I've gone ahead to cut this on my fabric. You can see I'm working with this Ankara fabric, and I cut lining for the center front and the rest for the side front and the rest of the central front. And for my illusion, I used this mesh to cut it. So there are several types of mesh. Okay, you just work with the one that is very close to your skin tone. They come in different tone, like I said, for light skin, for dark skin. So you just need to work with one that is very, very close to your skin tone so that it will not be so obvious. Okay, so now is either you cut two of this yoke and then use them to turn each other so that the neck will be neatly finished, or you can turn the neckline with a bias. But if you are working with a very strong net, you can just cut one of it like I'm doing. My neck is quite very strong, so I'll just be working with this one now, and then we'll go over to our sewing machine and start to sew. So to sew this now, the first thing I'm going to do now is to sew my center front to my side front like this, both the lining and the main fabric, before I join them to my mesh. So I've joined the center front and the side front together like this, and I did the same on my lining. So the next thing to do now is to start joining this to my yoke. Okay, so to do this, I'm just going to place this on my yoke. Let me take this so that we can see it better. Okay, so now this side of my yoke, I'm going to take my side front now and then sew it by joining it like this. Okay, it has to match once you use the same measurement for it. So now my yoke, I'm going to join it one side first, and then I'm going to use my lining to turn it so that it will be neatly finished before I do the other side. Okay, so I've joined this I've joined one side of my mesh to the Ankara fabric now, as you can see. So now, like I said, for it to be neatly finished, I don't want to be seeing all this. I'm going to be covering it up with my lining. So I'll take the lining that corresponds to this side like this. Remember, it's supposed to cover it up like this. So now to completely cover it, I'm just going to flip it over and then I'm going to match it to my fabric and then sew it. So I'm going to be sewing it on this side so that I'll just follow the seam line that I already have here. So by the time I sew it like this, it's going to cover up the rough edges for me. Okay, so I've gone ahead to add my lining to it, and you can see how neat it is on the inside now. So the same way I did that for my lining for my first side, I'll do the same on my other side. I'm going to place my Ankara on it and then join the lines together, and then I'm going to cover it up with the lining. So I've gone ahead to sew it on both sides now, and you can see the inside is looking really neat. So now for it to relax well, I'm just going to flip this over, and then I'm going to notch it round. Remember, it's a curve, so I'll notch it round so that it can relax well for me. And then I can also go ahead to top stitch on the lining by flipping the allowance on the lining like this. And after flipping the allowance on the lining, you just top stitch on it so that it relaxes well for you. And remember, if you are doing it for a client, you need to pad the bust area so that your bust can be standing really well, and then you give it a good press. So now I'll take this to the mannequin so that we will see what this is looking like. Okay, so this is what our illusion neckline is looking like on the mannequin. As you can see how beautiful it is, and how opened you want it depends on you. Remember, I took my 1 inch on my bust point, which is here. So if you don't want it this opened, you can go up like 1 or 2 inches before you take your 1 inch, so that this side will still be narrow, to not be this wide. Okay, you can do any adjustment that you want with it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be centralized like this. The illusion can come from one side and then tilt towards the other like that, depending on any style that you want to perform. And if you have any style in mind that you want us to do, let us know in the comment section. This is really beautiful and it's very simple to make. See you in the next one. Bye.